All right, and then we'll do a quick demonstration of field services. This is a bit of a work in progress at the moment, but I think it was mentioned that this could be used if you're doing services out in the field and needing to gather information about the operations that are being performed. So if we go into new field service, we can choose a customer. These could also be staged in advance. You know, if you were going to send a tech out and you wanted to have this all sort of prepped in advance, that's an option. So we populated the customer. You have the ability to assign a serial number. So if this was service on a particular device, you could choose the serial number. And then we have a work performed tab. That the use case that this was designed for is there can be multiple different types of service that you could run. So in this case, the customer had wear, wash, and laundry type services. So servicing dishwashers or laundry equipment. So if we choose wear, wash, then we can populate a list of operations that tech is responsible for. And there's several different sort of indications of the item. So in this case, we can have a toggle that indicates that, yes, they performed that action. You can also prompt for input and have a unit of measure associated with that. So if they needed to check the rinse pressure on a device, and then they could check the temperature, and we can also allow them to input multi-value or combo box type information where there could be multiple different values they can provide. And these can be staged. Sorry, go ahead. Exactly. The idea here is when you choose your report type, we can pre-populate it with all the operations that are specific to that report type, but then you also have the option to add additional manual operations, and you can choose from a list. Yeah, so at the moment, the time tracking is based on when you start the ticket and end the ticket. So in this case, they perform, the idea here in this particular use case is they've now performed the action, and we're going to get a signature from the contact on the site where it was being performed. So we would now prompt for a signature, capture their name, and then we're going to log the date and time that the signature was captured. So then we'll have a start time and an end time associated with it. So now if we save this field service item, we have the option again to generate a PDF. And again, this is a bit of a work in progress. The operation detail is not currently showing on this particular PDF, but again, we're capturing the signature and we can stamp that onto the document as sort of a proof of delivery of those services.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, so the field service orders, I think as Ron mentioned, these are separate orders. It's a different table that we're storing these in. It's separate from a sales order. Yeah, I think there's a number of connections that could be made there, and Ron could potentially speak to that better than I can. But as I showed, you can indicate a serial number. So if your product was serialized, then that would be a way to link it back to a particular product. And then those serial numbers are associated with a customer.
The serial number is the link we currently use because the serial file contains when this serial number was delivered originally, and then when it came back, when it got repaired, which field service order repaired it. So that's kind of the repository for all the traceability on what's happened with that number.
The tech side of it, right? The true back end of the system can be written in whatever. Most of our customers, and certainly all of our applications, have some form of a multi-value database on the back end, storing everything just like yours. The database then has its REST APIs that the C# layer is using to communicate with. So you have a sort of decoupled nature between the applications with the Rover ERP opinionation carrying through, but with the wiggle room in there to allow you to pass through the things that make your system in the process, if that makes sense.
Yep, totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's a few options there, right? So we can guide your team on how to craft the APIs. You can engage with us for services time from our team to have the APIs generated for your system. Right, we've got a team that does that pretty regularly. But you can also look at it if some of these things were areas where you look at it and you think, hey, we're not really tracking this type of data in our system at all. Then maybe the opportunity is to have a Rover ERP tenant that's deployed for you too, that captures the data areas in the system that you don't really have an equivalent for right now, and marries all this stuff up. Because that's the beauty of it too, with that API integration strategy. Greg having the screen pulled up here, there's nothing that really dictates that as he moves from one area to the next, that all of that stuff is being presented from the same API endpoint, right?